There are growing efforts around the world this morning to coordinate armed forces and intelligence in the fight against ISIS. But the process comes with challenges. Robert Gates served as Defense Secretary under both President George W. Bush and President Obama. Before that, he worked for the CIA for 27 years, including time as its director. He joins us now from Philadelphia. Secretary Gates, good morning.
Good morning, Charlie.
Tell us how you assess the threat now that we've had the Paris attack, Lebanon, and the Sinai from ISIS, and what we ought to do about it.
Well, I think what those three attacks demonstrate, along with the success that ISIS has had in gaining control of the central part of Libya, is that the reach of this organization goes far beyond the Syrian, Iraqi areas that their troops control. And while the capture or killing of the mastermind of the Paris attacks is obviously important and a good thing, the truth is this snake has many heads. And while this is a setback for them, the truth is I have a feeling that there are many others prepared to take his place.
So what more do you think, Mr. Gates, that the U.S. could be doing to stop ISIS? What do you think?
Well, I think that, first of all, we need to loosen the rules of engagement for the forces that we already have in Iraq, and perhaps think about sending some modest increased number. We need to let our special operations forces be more active. We need to implant or embed advisors and trainers with the Iraqi forces down to the battalion level, as well as with Sunni tribes and with the Kurds who are fighting. We need forward air controllers to help make the air attacks more effective and more precise. And that may require some modest increase in forces, but not a large one, I think. I think we need to assess whether our intelligence operations there are as aggressive as they might be in terms of getting inside ISIS or in terms of sabotage and other covert operations. I think the President and the Congress ought to have the director of the National Security Agency tell them what capabilities does NSA have to track these guys that they are prevented from using now, and what would those capabilities give us in terms of added capability of tracking potential terror plots in the United States or elsewhere in the world. And then if he says there are capabilities that can be helpful, we ought to take advantage of that. And I think, frankly, it may be time for a heart-to-heart talk between the President and some of the leaders of the tech companies in terms of them providing some help to the government on some of these highly sophisticated encryption devices.
As former Secretary of Defense, I want to ask you about the debate over U.S. combat troops. You've heard the President say no more U.S. combat troops. Marco Rubio, who's running for president, said we need a Sunni ground force from some of our Arab allies. What do you think the likelihood of that happening is?
Well, I think the odds are low. The truth is we are working with some Sunni ground forces, and those are the tribes in the area of Iraq and Afghanistan that have not been taken over by ISIS and that are defending their home villages, their home area. And the more we can support those people, provide them arms, provide them with training and help, the more we should do. But the idea that you're going to get significant military formations from Saudi Arabia or Turkey or other countries to go on the ground in Iraq or Syria to take on ISIS, I think is the likelihood of that is being done is very remote.
And so what do you think about the debate among Republican candidates in opposition to what the President says he's prepared to do, that they want to see American ground troops on the ground to defeat ISIS? Combat troops on the ground.
I spent a lot of time listening to politicians ready to send our young men and women into conflict. And the trouble is, when the going gets rough, the politicians are nowhere to be seen. So the question is, how many troops? What would they do? Are you talking about tens of thousands of American troops? If you're looking for an urgent response, that isn't going to happen quickly. The logistics involved, the training involved, and I would add, you're dealing with an army that, first of all, has been cut back dramatically, and second, that's been at war for 14 years. So These are some realities that I think some of these folks don't take into account. It would take a lot of time to get a force of tens of thousands there. And then what is the non-military component of the strategy? What is the humanitarian assistance? What is the governance? What is the political side of it? Those are the aspects that we always struggled with in Afghanistan and in Iraq. And frankly, I don't think our capabilities in those arenas have gotten any better.
All right, Secretary Gates, we thank you for taking the time this morning. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
My pleasure.